Locations across Utah, Revere has you covered for all your health needs. Revere Health, your partner in health, your partner for life. Online at reverehealth.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather. Smoke from wildfires in Washington and Oregon is moving across Utah. That'll stay here through tomorrow. Sunny today, clouds building up tomorrow, and there's a chance for more thunderstorms on Friday. Today's high 87, up to 94 tomorrow. It's 82 degrees with sunny skies right now at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. Your all-day companion for news.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Americans love to chase the headlines of natural disasters. They love the headlines of political dramas. But what happens when the two collide? Are there leadership lessons to be learned? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Of course, we've tracked the hurricane moving across Florida and now up the coast throughout the day today here on KSL News Radio. The question is, what do we learn from these situations, especially when we have politics and natural disaster or big national crises collide? And we're actually seeing just a little bit of that, especially for those who are living in Florida at the moment. Of course, Governor Ron DeSantis has stopped campaigning so that he could be in Florida to help coordinate the massive response and what will be an extraordinary cleanup effort there in Florida. Just a moment ago, President Biden stepped to the podium and said that he spoke with Governor DeSantis about emergency declaration requests, and here's what he said.
Early Monday morning, long before the storm made landfall, I spoke with Governor DeSantis and approved an early request for emergency declaration to enable him to have the full support ahead of time to protect the people's lives in the state of Florida.
So it's in moments like this where we do put aside the politics and actually have serious conversations. Earlier this week, President Biden was answering some questions while welcoming the president of Costa Rica, but he confirmed that he was having conversations, regular conversations and contact with Florida Governor DeSantis to make sure everything was prepped, ready for when the storm hit.
I spoke with the governor last night. We're providing everything that he possibly needs. We're in constant contact. I had the director of FEMA in here today, earlier, talking about it. It's going to be, I think we're worried about the surge, the ocean surge. We don't know exactly yet. It's hour to hour we're watching this. But I told the governor that, and the mayor, regions that are likely to be hit first, that we're there as long as it takes. We're going to make sure they have everything they need.
And this morning, Governor DeSantis, clearly in the executive role as the governor, gave the latest update at several different press conferences to the people of Florida, to the people of the country. He listed extensive preparatory efforts. He talked about how things had been organized with the federal government as well as state agencies to make sure that everything was set and ready to go.
There's a lot of people that are on deck right now. There's going to be a lot of efforts as this storm passes. It is a major hurricane, as we've been saying it was likely to be for the last couple days, and we just hope everybody stays safe. Don't put your life at risk. This thing's powerful. If you're inside, just hunker down until it gets past you. You don't want to be messing around with these winds. There's going to be things flying all over the place. Obviously, if you're in a place that's close to the coast and you see that surge, that's going to be legitimate surge. It's going to be a big deal, and it's going to be very, very dangerous.
So let's break that down just a little bit. So you've got a predominant Democrat in President Joe Biden. You have a prominent Republican in Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. And when it comes to a moment like this in America, you put the politics on the shelf. You put campaigns for presidency on the shelf to do the job that needs to be done. And I think that's something that we can be proud of as a country, that we've learned that, you know what, there are things that transcend politics. And it's usually when we're dealing and helping the people of the country. And so I think both President Biden and Governor DeSantis deserve some good kudos for how they've gone about this. We've seen it in the past sometimes where it's a little begrudging if you have a president from one party and a governor of another. Everyone's always worried about the picture, being taken of how's that going to appear, who's going to use that in a campaign ad against you later on. And to me, that's all just nonsense. That is nonsensical, social media-driven, headline-chasing clickbait. And it has nothing to do with governing. And remember, we elect people, we vote for people to govern when it's hard. We elect people to govern when tough choices need to be made, when things need to be prioritized, when you need to rally the people and rally the resources to deliver relief. That's what we elect people to do. And so, those who are squawking about, conversations between Joe Biden and Ron DeSantis, just put it on the shelf. This is what Americans do. We come together. In fact, I want to go back historically just for a minute. Let's go back to 2008. 2008, you still had President George W. Bush in the White House. A lot of financial challenges, of course, going on. The bank crisis was in the middle of the middle. And it was in the middle of the presidential campaign between then Senator Barack Obama and then Senator John McCain. Candidate Obama held a press conference, and again, they were dealing with the 2008 housing market crash. And then Senator Barack Obama confirmed that he and his opponent, battling for the White House, had both agreed that they would suspend their presidential campaigns in the fall of an election year, to go back to Washington and contribute to the response to the economic crisis.
We have to act swiftly, but we have to also get it right. And that means everyone, Republicans and Democrats, the White House and Congress, need to work together to come up with a solution that protects American taxpayers. It's in this spirit that I reached out and called to Senator McCain. I initiated the call after determining that many of the principles that I had set forth were ones that Senator McCain had adopted as well, in terms of how this financial proposal should be structured.
On that same day, John McCain put out a statement that he said, "I will suspend my campaign and return to Washington." He said, "I'm calling on the president to convene a meeting with the leadership from both houses of Congress, including Senator Obama and myself. It's time for both parties to come together to solve the problem." John McCain continued, "We must, as Americans, not as Democrats or Republicans, come together, and we must meet until the crisis is resolved." Also interesting, President at the time, George W. Bush, just a few days later, welcomed both of the presidential candidates to the White House as everyone came together to respond to the emergency.
I want to thank the leaders of the House and the Senate for coming. I appreciate our presidential candidates for being here as well. We're in a serious economic crisis in the country if we don't pass a piece of legislation. One thing the American people have to know is that all of us around the table take this issue very seriously. And we know we've got to get something done as quickly as possible. And this meeting is an attempt to move the process forward. My hope is that we can reach an agreement very shortly.
So, again, you have to think about that from a perspective of time. This was the fall. It was a very closely contested race between then Senators Barack Obama and John McCain. And to say at that moment, we're jumping off the campaign trail, we're suspending our campaigns so that we can go do the jobs that we were elected to do. They were both still senators at the time, and they had a job to do. And so they did. I wonder if that would be the same thing today. I do commend Ron DeSantis because he did just that. He suspended and he didn't necessarily suspend, he has left the campaign trail to be in Florida to do his job. And that's the prioritization that has to take place. And that's what we have to expect from our leaders. And so there's a lot of lessons in a crisis. There's so many things that you can learn. And so often we're so worried about the political posturing of it all that if you look back in history, we have a pretty good record in this country. People that coming together when there is a crisis to do the right thing for the country, not the thing that's most politically expedient, but the thing that is in the best interest of the country. And so we're going to stay with this conversation around leadership because I think there are so many lessons in it. And we're seeing some of these play out both in Florida, what we saw in Hawaii last week. And we're going to see what are those lessons, what does it mean, and then more important, what does it mean to each of us? This is not just about those that might sit in the White House or walk the halls of Congress or sit in a big boardroom of a major corporation. This is what happens in our living rooms, at our kitchen tables, at the local diner, in our local school board meetings. There's a kind of leadership that we need to get back to in this country when we deal with the critical issues of our time. Stay with us. We'll continue the conversation.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Next Tuesday,
there's still time for people to get their ballots turned in.
Republicans make their choice.
It's hard to compare this election to ones of the past.
Reporter Lindsay Aerts will cover every twist and turn in our countdown to the 2nd District primary. It's the race to replace Congressman Chris Stewart. All this week on KSL News Radio.
As the weather turns colder, this is when you need to get those new windows. So call Advanced Window Products. They'll replace your single-pane, rickety old windows with stylish, state-of-the-art double-pane windows with precision frames. You pick the style and color. They're custom-made right here in Salt Lake City. This company is so Utah. It's run by two guys who grew up here, Jake Weber and Utes defensive star Nate Orchard, the mayor of Sacktown with 7 NFL seasons under his belt. Great guys, great company building high-quality windows for 37 years. Unlike other companies, they build the windows, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. No middleman. There's Jake, Nate, and their team, and there's you. Saving on the highest quality windows. Right now, before winter, get $2,000 off 10 windows or more, and they offer 60 months, 0% financing. So call Advanced Window Products now. You could have stylish new windows in 8 weeks. 801-850-9100. 801-850-9100 or visit AdvancedWindowsUSA.com.
Have you Googled yourself lately? Are there negative posts from an ex-employee or from a former client? Maybe an outdated news article or sensitive personal information about your family? Search engines don't always get it right. For right or wrong, it's your reputation on the line. That's where Reputation Defender by Norton comes in. One of the most trusted names in online reputation repair, Reputation Defender has been fixing people's search results for over 15 years. Their cutting-edge approaches help you to wipe away unwanted information in your search results. They also promote the good stuff so that it rises to the top, helping you put your best foot forward. Your good name is too valuable to leave to the whims of a Google algorithm. Take control with Reputation Defender. You can start by getting your free reputation report card at reputationdefender.com or call 800-401-6681 to speak to an expert. That's 800-401-6681.
What's the biggest threat to your retirement savings today? Believe it or not, it's taxes. That's right, you could be paying a lot more taxes in retirement than you realize. Learn more in a free report, 3 retirement tax traps that could wipe out your savings. It's from Boss Retirement Solutions, a 5-time winner of Utah's Best of State Award. This free report reveals how you could avoid 3 retirement tax traps that could needlessly cost you tens of thousands, and in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars. To get this free report, call 801-896-9622. Don't needlessly overpay your taxes in retirement. Get this free report now by calling 801-896-9622. That's 801-896-9622. Advisory services offered through Boss Retirement Advisors, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. Insurance products and services offered through Boss Retirement Solutions.
Sometimes we're faced with a crossroads in life and we don't know which path to take. Maybe you're thinking about a career change or feeling like your relationship needs some TLC. Whatever it is, BetterHelp Therapy can help you map out your future and trust yourself to find the way forward. BetterHelp is entirely online therapy that offers video, phone, or even live chat online therapy sessions. You have a busy life, so BetterHelp is designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist in under 48 hours, and you can also switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Give BetterHelp Online Therapy a try and get on your way to being your best self. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/KSL. That's betterhelp.com/KSL.
Join KSL on the movie show this Friday from 9 to noon at the Layton NPS store at 1150 North Main Street in Layton, npsstore.com.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, it could be slow going for the thousands of Utahns who will be traveling this Labor Day weekend. Second, having the county count ballots in the upcoming primary election isn't good enough for some city officials in Hurricane. They want to count them all again by hand. And third, hospitals along the Florida Gulf Coast made it through Hurricane Idalia with few problems. Right now, 82 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. If you missed the last segment, we talked about how Governor Ron DeSantis has stepped off of the campaign trail in his run to become the GOP nominee for president to do his job, which is an important thing, to keep the right focus in the right place, to do the job you have rather than to chase the job you want. It's an interesting way to look at Governor DeSantis' leadership as the state prepared for a Category 3 hurricane that made landfall early this morning. And whether you agree with the governor's policies relating to Disney or woke education or whatever it may be, you have to give him credit for being a governor first and a presidential candidate second. You also have to recognize that he is working hand in hand with President Joe Biden. And again, from a political standpoint, that can be hard because everybody's going to take the shot. Everybody's going to talk about, oh, they're talking on the phone all the time now. Oh, new pal, between President Biden and Governor DeSantis. All of those things are going to flow. But real leaders don't care about that because real leaders lead because they are focused on their stewardship of the job they have rather than chasing the job they want. We actually went in the last segment, we went all the way back to 2008. And then two people who were running head-to-head, really hard, really tough election, then senators, Barack Obama and John McCain, who both chose to suspend their presidential candidacies to go back to Washington to deal with the financial crisis of 2008 in the fall. I mean, they were just weeks away from the presidential election that would really decide where each of them went for the next 4 years. And they did the right thing, which is what we should expect out of all of our leaders. Not long ago, we talked to Lisa Gable, a best-selling author, global businesswoman, former U.S. ambassador, former UN delegate as well. And she talks a lot about leadership. And so we went through this whole idea of crisis leadership, what that is, what that really looks like or should look like, and what we should expect from leaders of all kinds, whether it's government leaders, business leaders, community leaders, what we should expect out of ourselves. And here's the first thing she said, that when you are in a time of crisis, here's the first thing that leaders ought to focus on.
Well, part of it is prioritization. And one of the things I learned when I worked at Intel Corporation is that you really need to focus on job one. What's the number one thing we have to do in order to survive and thrive? And we saw Churchill was very effective at doing that. Great leaders are very effective at reminding people that, yes, we used to do all of these things, but in a moment of crisis, what is the thing that we need to focus on as a nation, as a people, as democracies, in order to ensure that we will continue to be able to live in the freedoms that we have?
And that's Lisa Gable, former U.S. ambassador, former UN delegate. She's been a business person. She understands crisis leadership. And so you have to start with that kind of prioritization. What matters most? What is the number one job? And then how do we do that? She also said it's important to keep the big picture in mind and not to get distracted with all the little stuff that is probably going to take care of itself in the end.
People lose sight of the bigger vision. And so they start tweaking around the edges, right? They think if we make this little tactical move here and we make this little tactical move there, that everything's going to reset itself. And the reality is that doesn't work because as you pointed out, it's the small things that kill us. And it is one reason I'm into prioritizing, ranking and rating, making a decision as to what's really important and stop focusing on the little things. One of the things I talked about today during my remarks is a lesson I learned from my dad. Don't treat everything in life like a battle. It's really, the fight's not worth it, and everything's not that important. Keep your powder dry and wait for the big moments, and that's where you deploy all your assets.
And that's that ability. We've talked about it in the context of this idea of the OODA loop, OODA, where you observe, orient, decide, and act. And it comes from air-to-air combat, pilot training back in the old days. That's how they actually measured how effective a pilot was going to be in air-to-air combat. How quickly could they turn over that loop to observe something, to orient to what's going on around them, to make a decision, and then to act, and then to do that again. And the pilots who were able to turn that OODA loop over and over and over more rapidly always won. Same thing is true in crisis situations. Leaders who can rapidly take in, observe what's going on, orient themselves and their team to what the dynamics are, the changes to the dynamics on the ground. They make a decision, they act on it, and they start over. Now we're going to observe again. Now we orient, now we decide, then we act. And that's how crisis leadership works best. It's also true when it comes to leadership that you also have to have leaders who are willing to step back and kind of keep it all in perspective. I want to go back to the conversation with Lisa Gable because she's seen this at a lot of different levels. From an NGO level, as an ambassador, she's seen it in big-time business, and she said there's a characteristic that is so important to all great leaders, especially in times of crisis.
I believe that great leaders recognize that they are temporary stewards of the organization. If they do a good job, will continue after they leave. And so every decision they make has to be based on what is best for the organization, not based on what is best for me personally.
This whole idea of stewardship is such an important leadership quality. Our friend Gainalyn Condi always reminds us that all of these different areas of our life where we often talk about leadership, we really ought to be talking about stewardship because it's temporary. You serve in different roles in your life for different seasons of your life. And you may be a manager at one point, you may be an employee, you may be a boss, you may be a community leader, you may be a parent. There's all these different stewardships that we get in our lives. And the great leaders recognize that they're really just temporary stewards, that they have this little season that they get to drive something or influence or impact something, and that the best way to do that, to be a careful steward, is to make every decision based on what's best for the organization, not what is best for you personally. And that's often where we see leaders get in trouble in the middle of a crisis. The leaders who put their finger up in the wind or they go to check out whatever is consultant certified or poll tested and approved, they get in trouble because they're just swaying with the wind. And so they either make brash statements or they take reckless action rather than being smart and saying, okay, what's in the best interest of those that I'm trying to serve today? And if you stay focused in that space, the rest is pretty easy. The rest is just execution. If you have a good team around you, you can execute it. But that leadership is required. I think it's also crucial in a time of crisis. A leader has to have empathy, has to have that connection to the people. I often say a great leader in a time of crisis has to be close enough to be connected to the people, but far enough ahead that they're actually worth following. Because if they're just in the middle of it, nobody's leading. And you're not going anywhere. So you have to be close enough to be connected, far enough ahead that people are going to say, hey, that's somebody worth following. I'll do that. I'll buy into that. And part of that is that the leaders, those kinds of leaders, not only have that empathy and connection, they have the transparency and authenticity that builds trust, which allows them to take accountability for what went right, what went wrong, what could have been done better. And then all great leaders in a time of crisis call the people to action, to do something. Because when they do something, then they become part of the story. They become part of the solution. They become part of what's next. And whether that's a hurricane, a fire, a natural disaster, a tragedy of any kind, or even just a business downturn, a big layoff, or something that's a challenge in your community or in your own family. It's the same thing. Empathy, clarity, and transparency, build that trust, have the accountability, and be willing to be vulnerable, and to be accountable, and then to move forward with a call to action. That's how it gets done. We'll continue to watch all kinds of crisis leadership across the country and right here at home. We'll step aside for some bottom-of-the-hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next on KSL News Radio. Stick around.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. An 18-year-old woman was injured this morning when she was hit by a TRAX train at the Bingham station. UTA says all of its safety equipment was working at the time. The woman was apparently walking toward the platform to board the train. Witnesses say she was not texting or reading. Rescue teams had to use airbags to lift the train before she could be taken to the hospital. The city of Hurricane plans to recount their city's primary election results by hand. The city initially wanted to tabulate its own election independent of the county, but the agreement between the city and the county doesn't allow for it. Mayor Nanette Billings says her citizens want this.
The community, the people, the citizens that have said, can we be sure that this is accurate? And our job as canvassers is to trust and verify.
Nanette Billings is married to Willie Billings, who lost a seat for the Utah legislature by less than 10 votes last year, and then sued after the county wouldn't recount the votes by hand. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Hours after making landfall in Florida, Hurricane Idalia has raced through Georgia on its way to the Carolinas. ABC's Jim Ryan is in Tampa, where conditions are improving.
Search and rescue crews are prepared to fan out in the areas where Idalia first touched the shoreline. Among the casualties at this point, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says, is a tree outside the governor's mansion in Tallahassee.
This is a really, ancient oak tree split in half, and part of it fell. I don't know that it fell on, the residence per se. I think it was a little bit off to the side.
Florida First Lady Casey DeSantis posted a picture of the giant tree split down the middle. She added that no one was hurt when it came down. Jim Ryan, ABC News, Tampa.
Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up 37 points on the day right now, and the NASDAQ up 64 points at this hour. And our KSL weather, we've got some smoke in the air around Salt Lake. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:32.
What do you need to hear in the morning to feel ready for the day?
Important news that happened overnight, the traffic you'll hit on the roads.
You'll be ready for your day with us.
Join Utah's Morning News 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
You know, there are whodunits, and then there's Catch Me If You Can that is showing right now at Hale Center Theater. The other night, Dee and I had the chance to be there, and it is a remarkable production. You are left wondering what in the world is going on, who indeed did do it. Don't miss Catch Me If You Can. It's showing right now at Hale Center Theater. And don't forget, in a couple of weeks, mid-September, it'll be Around the World in 80 Days. It's time to get your tickets for that production. And then also Elf is coming up in November. And believe it or not, it's not too early to get your tickets for A Christmas Carol at Hale Center Theater. Every year I get a call from the theater and they say, yeah, I know it's September, I know it's October, but we're getting sold out. Don't miss the opportunity to see this amazing production that you're going to love at Hale Center Theater. Get your tickets for everything right now at hct.org.
Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors. And let's face it, it's time to update the look of your home's exterior. When was that thing built? In the 50s, 70s, 90s, the 2000s? Well, it's looking like it. Faded siding, drafty windows, leaky gutters. It's time to take action now. RGS Exteriors has been taking Utah homes from drab to fab for over 5 generations. We only use the highest quality materials, like James Hardy siding and gutter topper gutter covers. You will be blown away by how much different and better and awesome your house can look. Your neighbors will be jealous, your home value will go up, and most of all, you're going to love it. Everything we do comes with our industry-leading 10-year everything guarantee, so you can sleep like a baby, knowing if anything goes wrong, you're 100% covered. For a free estimate on your gutters, windows, siding, or anything on your outside of your home, call RGS Exteriors at 801-280-3110 or visit us at rgsutah.com. That's rgsutah.com.
This Labor Day, hospitals need extra blood. ARUP Blood Services has 2 locations open 7 days a week. Save a life. Help someone in need. Visit utahblood.org. utahblood.org.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meese.
Right now, I'm looking through the live traffic cameras for a rollover accident extrication needed westbound I-80 prior to 2300 East, and it looks like at least a right lane is currently blocked and traffic is starting to stack up past Foothill Drive. We're still waiting for emergency crews to arrive at the scene. Sprinkler system on autopilot? It's time to dial back outdoor watering. For more ways to save water, visit Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District at jvwcd.org/conservation. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather. Smoke from wildfires in the Pacific Northwest is moving across Utah, and that'll stay here through tomorrow. We've got sunny skies above that and clouds building up tomorrow, and there's a chance for more thunderstorms on Friday. Today's high 87, up to 94 on Thursday. And right now, we're at 82 degrees and sunny at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. Your all-day companion for news.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Standing on the very edge of the Republican primary debate stage last week was one of the lesser-known candidates, Asa Hutchinson. He's the former governor of Arkansas, was once considered a real rising star in the Republican Party. And the question is, who is he really, and what is there to really know? To me, it's one of those fascinating stories that perhaps in a different age, he would have been the nominee or even the president of the United States. And often that makes me question, what if we lost in those who may not appear to be the greatest candidate on a stage, but might actually be the best person behind the Resolute desk in the Oval Office? Someone who did a great deep dive into what was called the totally not boring story of the most normal Republican presidential candidate. Ben Birnbaum is a writer based in Tel Aviv. He's also the founder of the Middle East peace organization Ropes, piece in Politico magazine. And Ben, thanks for joining us today.
Boyd, great to be on with you.
This is an important conversation because I think there's a lot of great lessons in the story of Asa Hutchinson. But give us kind of the initial dive here. Again, a lot of people aren't familiar with the former governor, but there are some interesting stories that maybe are a little less boring than they appear.
Yeah, sure. So I think a good way to start the conversation is that Arkansas, even though now it is one of the most Republican states in the union, it really was a laggard in the South's turn to the Republican Party in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And so Asa Hutchinson was actually, he likes to say, as one of the anti-Trump candidates, he's in the minority of the party, but he's used to being in the minority because for many decades he was a leading figure in what was a very small Republican Party. So, the candidate he reminds me of a lot is George Bush, in that he has a very eclectic resume. He was a U.S. attorney, actually was the youngest U.S. attorney when he was appointed by President Reagan in 1982. He served, obviously, 2 terms as governor of Arkansas. Before that, he was in Congress for a few terms, where he served as impeachment manager against Bill Clinton. And then after George Bush became president, he was administrator of the DEA. And then after 9/11, was reassigned to the Homeland Security Department, where he basically served as the number 2 under Tom Ridge. So very impressive resume, very well respected in Arkansas, and not someone that you necessarily would have pegged as the most moderate candidate. Yes, in the past few years, he's done some things. For example, accepting Obamacare dollars that put him on the more moderate end of the party. But, people who know him very well would argue that it's more that the party has changed, but he's been the same conservative, Reagan conservative for the past 30 years.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. Many people have criticized on those that are the former presidents kind of in his camp, criticized Hutchinson for his criticism of former President Trump. But I think it's so interesting that Hutchinson has this unique experience of being the manager of the impeachment proceedings against then President Bill Clinton, to have very similar feelings about a Republican president in Donald Trump. I think that gives him a pretty unique experience and probably some credibility that I don't know if anyone else on that stage could actually muster.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the themes that I really saw a lot in discussions about Hutchinson and discussions with him is his very big belief in the rule of law, whether that's applied to Bill Clinton during that trial. And, one thing people note was during the impeachment trial, he was actually a little bit more by the book and sort of stayed away from the more salacious details just to focus on the actual violations of the law when it comes to perjury or obstruction of justice. And so I think it's not surprising that he would have a certain reaction when he felt like a Republican president was violating the law, violating the Constitution. So, yeah.
So as you've done this deep dive on him, give us a couple of under the radar things. Again, people kind of see and like, okay, don't quite understand who he is or don't get that story. But there's a lot of surprising things. Obviously, an amazing resume, but kind of get underneath that for us. What did you learn about him in terms of how he approaches things or what he might do if he actually were to be the nominee?
Yeah, I mean, he's very deliberate. He doesn't speak off the cuff. He thinks through his answers very carefully, and he's very measured. I think that's an adjective that describes him and probably why he's such a awkward fit for the modern GOP, where people like Ron DeSantis or Vivek Ramaswamy now are getting the attention. He's not a candidate who's built for the viral age, but a lot of people would argue that, if you're looking for a candidate who is a good administrator, someone who can govern, that he would be your guy. Obviously he's one of the older candidates in the field at 72, though definitely doesn't look it or feel it. I mentioned in the piece that every morning he does a hotel room exercise routine, 100 jumping jacks, 50 sit-ups, 50 push-ups. So he's kept in good shape. He's a big basketball player, actually. Every Friday during his terms as governor would play a 5-on-5 pickup basketball game into his 70s. So, I would say just a nice guy. That's something that a lot of people would say. It was very hard to find anyone who had anything negative to say about him on a personal level. Obviously, there was a little disappointment among certain elements of the Republican Party in Arkansas that disagreed with his approach to COVID. He was a very big supporter of the vaccines and tried to take a very middle-of-the-road approach, and obviously a lot of pushback against his expansion of Medicaid under Obamacare. But I would say I saw a lot of respect for him across the aisle. One of the more interesting anecdotes that didn't make it into the piece was the fact that when he got in, he ended up mending fences with Bill Clinton. And that was one of the first things he did when being elected, is reached out because he knew that the Clinton Library is a big driver of dollars to the state. And they ended up very curiously developing quite a friendship and a respect for each other.
Oh, now that is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
that is a. I'd like you to do a whole piece just on that conversation of how do you go from being the lead manager in the impeachment proceedings to becoming friends. But I think that is something, and to Bill Clinton's credit, I think it's something he's proven that you can do. Whether it's his relationship with George W. Bush and George H.W. Bush before he passed away, again, kind of this more normal person. Having more normal relationships, to me, seems like it might not be a bad thing for the country, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on.
No, I think we need more of that, and we're getting away from that. But yeah, it was interesting. His chief of staff told me she saw them talking on the sidelines of the Clinton Library event. They were talking macroeconomic policy, and she told me, if I didn't know the backstory, I would say, oh my God, these guys must have been friends for years.
Oh, I love that. We need a heck of a lot more than that. I'm so glad you raised that. It's always those things that don't get into the piece that I often love is just that extra backstory piece that's often so informative. Ben Birnbaum, a writer based in Tel Aviv. This is a great piece in Politico. And whether you are a fan of Asa Hutchinson or think he ought to be on the stage or not, he is someone who has served our country in a really major way. He's also shown you can cross the aisle. He's shown you can have friendships, even with those you have really big, hard battles with. A lot of great leadership lessons in there, which we continue to have as a theme for the day today. Ben, thanks so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Boyd.
All right. That is great stuff. It is great writing by Ben Birnbaum. and a great, great piece into a candidate you probably don't know that well, but someone I guarantee you could learn a lesson from today. You should check it out. We'll be right back.
Three more days until BYU's Big 12 debut.
He's going to go 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown!
Saturday night, the Cougars sink their claws into the Sam Houston Bearcats. KSL pregame starts Saturday at 6. And then Sunday morning, get a total Big 12 roundup. The all-new First and 12. First and 12. Sunday 10 to noon on Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio.
Heart failure, carpal tunnel syndrome, shortness of breath, stomach issues, lower back pain. How does it all add up? If you have heart failure and any of those seemingly unrelated symptoms sound familiar, it's time to talk with your cardiologist and get the full picture. They may add up to transthyretin amyloid cardiomyopathy. ATTR-CM is a rare and underdiagnosed disease. Recognize the signs and discuss them with your doctor soon. Learn more at connectwithyourheart.com. That's connectwithyourheart.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Emergency traffic on KSL News Radio, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. We do have a rollover crash. This is westbound I-80. It's after Foothill, but prior to 2300 East. And right now that we have emergency crews that have arrived on the scene, they are blocking all lanes of travel. Now, this is a tractor trailer that's laying on its side, including the trailer portion. We're not sure if they're going to need to unload it. It could take a while. So westbound I-80, no traffic getting through, and this is due to the crash, and delays right now are stacking back to the mouth of Parley's Canyon. If you can plan ahead and use an alternate route, you want to consider doing so. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
When it's hot like this, air conditioners struggle to keep up. Parts are under more stress, and sometimes those parts fail. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and no one helps more homeowners maintain and repair their air conditioners than Any Hour Services. As a matter of fact, last year, over 32,000 homeowners called Any Hour Services for help maintaining and repairing their systems. Any Hour Services has over 100 HVAC technicians to help with everything from maintenance, repair, to installing a new system. This summer, there'll be a lot of people told they need to replace their air conditioner, and they'll wonder, do I really need to? If you're told you need to replace your air conditioner and you still have questions, Any Hour Services can give you a second opinion and let you know what options are available. Maybe it just needs a little maintenance or a small repair. Maybe it does need to be replaced, but if you don't feel good about being told you need to replace your air conditioner, don't ignore those feelings. Call Any Hour Services for help with air conditioner maintenance, repair, or to schedule a free second opinion. Google Any Hour Services or schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Hey, Derek Overstreet here from the New Millennium Group, financial advisors in Utah. You know, I've been helping people retire in the state of Utah for the last 20 years. The way we do that is we actually find out what is important to you. We create a step-by-step plan that takes into consideration your income, your debt, whether you want money from real estate, stock market, annuities, life insurance, whatever. If you want to deal with professionals, people that are fiduciaries and have a legal responsibility and obligation to do what's in your best interest, give my team a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. Or go to my website, utahsfinancialplanner.com. If you'd like to retire 3 to 5 years before you thought it was possible, give my team a call right now. 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370.
In this market, you'll find Fisher Investments is different than other money managers.
Different how? Aren't we all just looking for the hottest stocks?
Nope. We use diversified strategies to position our clients' portfolios for their long-term goals.
You don't just provide cookie-cutter portfolios?
No. We tailor our clients' portfolios to their goals and needs.
But you still sell investments that generate high commissions for you, right?
No, we don't sell commission-based products. We're a fiduciary, the highest standard of care for a financial advisor. It means we're obligated to act in our client's best interest.
So when do you make more money? Only when your clients make more money?
Yep. We have one transparent management fee structured so we do better when our clients do better.
Sounds like you really look out for your clients.
We do, because our priority is helping them achieve a comfortable retirement. That might be why most of our clients come from other money managers. Visit FisherInvestments.com to find out why investors like you switch to us. Fisher Investments. Clearly different money management.
Investments in securities involve the risk of loss.
Even before the pandemic, 1 in 5 American adults experience some form of mental illness, depression, suicide, prescription opioid misuse. Utah isn't immune to our share of challenges, but there is hope. We need to take action to keep our loved ones safe. That's why KSL has teamed with the University of Utah Huntsman Mental Health Institute to bring you hope and help you thrive. It's Healthy Mind Matters. Find out more at healthymindmatters.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, President Biden is promising federal support to the governors of Florida, Georgia, and South and North Carolina after Hurricane Idalia passes through. Second, a 100-year-old oak tree came crashing down at the Florida governor's mansion in Tallahassee as Hurricane Idalia came through that state. Didn't hurt anybody. And third, a woman was seriously injured this morning when she was hit by a trax train at the Bingham station. Right now, 82 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
We've been talking about leadership during this first hour, whether it's in a natural disaster or whether it's politically or whether it's in your own community. Leadership actually matters. You probably didn't wake up this morning thinking, I wonder who's running for the Senate in Missouri. But one of the Senate candidates there is launching a campaign with the kind of message that I think we need in so many places and spaces in this country. I want you to listen to the launch video for Jared Young's campaign for the United States Senate in Missouri. Take a listen.
This is your enemy. This is the person trying to take away your freedoms. This is the one trying to steal your job. This is who is destroying America. Or do we have it all wrong? If you look at your neighbor, really look at them, maybe you'll see something else. Someone working to make ends meet, trying to make it through the day, providing for their family, figuring out their way in the world. Just like you, just like me. Outrage and anger can give us the illusion of being powerful, but it's a lie. It doesn't solve anything. The problem is we're also weary from not being seen, from not being heard, that we believed that lie and we forgot. Forgot that the whole idea of America was a place where we united for the common good. The greatest way to love your country is to love your neighbor. That's the only way any of this gets better. Partisan politics will never be able to bring us together. It's their job to make us forget that most of us actually agree on most things. These politicians aren't necessarily bad people. They're just caught in a system where the incentives are all wrong. If we want things to change, we need people representing us who are not required to play the game, who are actually allowed to hear us and focus more on solving problems than on doing battle. We have a choice. Keep playing this blood sport, or start actually listening to each other, actually seeing each other, trusting each other. You are not alone. None of us are. There's a better way, and that's together. It's we the people, not we the parties. We can be better, and it's time we remember that.
And that is the launch of the Jared Young for Senate, running for the United States Senate in the state of Missouri. That is a message that resonates. I think it is time, and we are really thrilled to have joining us on the program Jared Young, the candidate for Senate in the state of Missouri. Jared, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Boyd. Glad to be here.
So let's talk about your candidacy, independent candidacy there in the state of Missouri, clearly centered on a message of, hey, we are not that different. There's a lot of the incentives that are all backwards and wrong when it comes to our politics. Give us a sense of how is this resonating? You launched yesterday, so you're 24 hours into the campaign. Give us some of the response there in the state.
Yeah, so I officially launched yesterday, but I've been talking about people about this for months, obviously. There's a lot that goes into putting a Senate campaign together, and, you know, it's fun. Every time I talk to somebody about this, I immediately get a nodding head, and so people understand the message. People are just so tired of the ugliness and the dysfunction, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I think people are longing for some leaders to step up and demonstrate a better way.
Yeah, As you talk to the people there in Missouri, I'm sure that head nodding is something we see all the time, all across the country. It's not something that people naturally ask for, but when they experience it, it's sort of like oxygen. And so tell us how that is going to shape the race, which will be a very fascinating race there. Of course, sitting Senator Josh Hawley, not sure who's on the other side of the aisle there from the Democratic side, but what does that look like? What is that race shaping up to be?
So obviously, with an incumbent Republican in a red-leaning state, it'll be a challenge. But Josh Hawley, in a lot of ways, represents exactly what I'm fighting against, not necessarily on the policy front, but just on his approach to politics. He's definitely a grenade thrower. I mean, he's an incredibly intelligent person, very articulate. There are a lot of things I admire about him, and I won't be afraid to point those things out. That's something that's going to be different about our campaign. In fact, in my launch event last night, I went out of my way to actually compliment my likely opponents rather than tear them down. So that's part of the way we're just trying to demonstrate, hey, there's a better way to do this. But, Senator Hawley has a very strong backing among about a third of Missourians that are kind of your hardcore kind of Trump supporter sort of Missourians. And then there's another third of Missourians who are pretty strong kind of left-leaning folks, or really more a quarter of Missourians. And then it's those folks in the middle that I'm going after and that I'll need to get behind me to be able to succeed.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. And your background is interesting as well. Graduated from Harvard Law School. You're 37. You got a great family, a great family story. You're involved in the community there. And we've been talking a lot about that today in terms of the way to really break the polarization is to just get back to community. Because when you're coaching Little League or you're helping with a fundraiser at the local grade school, nobody's asking who you voted for in the last presidential election. It's all about helping the community. So give us a little sense of your story and how that will play into the way you would govern in the Senate.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I'm 37 years old, but I've packed a lot into those 37 years. I've lived abroad twice, lived in Sweden for a couple of years and lived in the Middle East. And then after my time in Boston for law school, I went to D.C. and was a lawyer. But we didn't gel so well in D.C. Just the big city life wasn't for us. So we fled here to rural Missouri, and I started running a business out here. And so I have a pretty diverse background in terms of the different places I've lived and the experiences I've had. While I've been here, served in a lot of different church leadership roles, but also served on the board of our local Boys and Girls Club. And yes, I've been involved a lot in my kids' sports. So been very involved in the community. I think, you talk about going to Harvard Law School. I was one of relatively few conservatives in my Harvard Law School class. And so that was a pretty defining experience for me to be able to see there are a lot of people that see the world differently than I do that are still really smart, really great people. And so I just have a lot of experience engaging with people that think differently from me and have a lot of respect for those people. And I think that's going to serve me well as I continue down this path.
Absolutely. We got just about 60 seconds left here, Jared, as we round this out. Give us one surprising component. What is someone who's in Missouri, they're just kind of starting to tune in and think about that Senate race. What's something that's going to surprise them when they learn more about you as a candidate?
I think what they're going to be surprised about is that there are so many people that are motivated and excited about this message. I think we've been so trained to think that there are only two options. I think they're going to be delighted to see that there's someone with some real experience that's a legitimate contender with resources that's offering them kind of a bona fide third option.
Love that. Jared Young is running for the United States Senate in Missouri as an independent. If you missed earlier, we'll put it up on our podcast. You need to listen to his launch announcement video for his run for the Senate. It's exactly the message we need to get to. It's the kind of leadership that we're longing for in this country. And Jared Young, we wish you all the best in your journey. We're going to check in with you as you move along because you've got some people here in the state of Utah watching to see how that works out and how people of Missouri respond to that message. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Boyd. Very much appreciate it.
All right, again, that's Jared Young. He's running for the United States Senate in Missouri. He's got a message that I think rings true, and it's one we're going to follow here on Inside Sources on KSL News Radio. That wraps up hour number 1 of the show. We're going to step aside for some top-of-the-hour news, but don't go anywhere. We got a big hour number 2 coming up in terms of how do we solve that polarization problem. We think we have the answer. We think it'll make sense to you. Stick around. We'll be right back.
KSL FM Midvale, KSL Salt Lake City. Listen on the KSL News Radio app and in your car at 102.7 FM. KSL News Radio, your all-day companion for news.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. We have breaking news. 3 sisters who were reported missing in Orem last night have been found safe. Orem police say the 3, 14-year-old Kennedy, 12-year-old Cashley, and 10-year-old Kaylee were last seen near 250 East and 1600 South in Orem on Tuesday evening. Officers believed the 3 were traveling together, but again, they have now been found safe. University of Utah and the Kearns Library partnered up to provide rooms where people can go to for virtual medical appointments in their own private space. Library manager Trish Hull says the goal of this partnership is to create easy and convenient access to health care.
You make the appointment with your doctor, make it with us, and then come in. And you make the appointment with your doctor, make it with us, and then come in and use the space, and we can help you. The doctors usually have interpreters if you don't speak English. We will not be present during the appointment, but we help them get set up.
Hull says the rooms are equipped with high-speed internet and basic medical tools like scales and blood pressure cuffs to help people get the best medical care possible. And our top national story this hour from ABC News. As Hurricane Idalia moves up the Atlantic coast from Georgia, South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster offering a word of advice to his state's residents. Get your papers, prescriptions, and pets ready to go.
If you have to leave in the dark and with a moment's notice, you need to have those things ready because you're not going to have time to do that then.
Back in Florida, FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell is set to meet with Governor Ron DeSantis to see what help the Sunshine State needs following the storm surge. It came ashore early this morning in Florida. Our top national, our money at this moment, the Dow Jones average, up 38 points on the day right now. The NASDAQ is up 75. And our KSL weather, we've got some smoke, but also got sunshine. That's next. KSL News Time 2:02.
We have enough people running around Broadcast House at 4 in the morning to field a football team.
Producers, reporters, the traffic team, and us.
This is Tim and Amanda.
Join us each morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Her name is Becky Edwards, and she's the common sense conservative we need in Congress. A proven fiscal conservative, Becky Edwards is unafraid to stand up to communist China or the big spenders in Washington to end the inflation that's hurting Utah families. Becky Edwards will defend our freedoms and support term limits like she did here in Utah. Becky Edwards, ready to make Washington work the Utah way.
I'm Becky Edwards, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Becky Edwards for Congress.
Whether you own a local business or a global one, you know that these days, generating growth is a challenge. By teaming with Bank of America, you'll not just stay ahead of the curve, you'll move it. With access to experts, award-winning insights, and business solutions so powerful, you'll make every move matter, locally and globally. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Copyright 2023 Bank of America, N.A.
You can host the best backyard barbecue. You find a professional on Angie to make your backyard the best around. Connect with skilled professionals to get all your home projects done well. Inside to outside, repairs to renovations. Get started on the Angie app or visit Angie.com today. You can do this when you Angie that.
Hey guys, if you're a patient at another Wave clinic for ED, Revive will transfer your care for free. And for those that medically qualify, we'll give you 4 Wave treatments for free, plus a 1-month supply of ED medication when you start Wave treatment with us. Our Renaissance Wave therapy is proven, non-invasive, and far more affordable than other Wave clinics. Book your consultation today. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
2 years ago, Americans watched in horror as a crisis unfolded at the Kabul airport.
There's desperation and anguish.
More than 80,000 Afghans have since arrived in America, but this story is still unfolding. I'm Andrea Smartin. In my new podcast, Stranger Becomes Neighbor, we'll find out what happens to these new arrivals in our communities. Who would help our newest neighbors? Follow us at kslpodcast.com, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you listen.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Emergency traffic brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meeks.
We have a rolled tractor trailer, and the trailer is laying on its side westbound I-80 prior to 2300 East. That freeway is closed, and with traffic being shut down, you'll be diverted off of westbound I-80 coming out of Parley's Canyon. And right now, we still have solid delays. Not quite back to the quarry, but definitely in the chain-up area. You need to plan ahead for this one. It's going to take a while for it to be cleared. If you're coming from Summit County into the valley, consider an alternate route, but definitely take Foothill or I-215's East Belt. And we also have a crash with possible injuries downtown at State Street and 400 South. How do you know if you're getting the best deal on employee benefits? You don't, unless you get free quotes from every insurance company every year. Visit shopmyplan.com to get free quotes. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather. Smoke from Washington and Oregon wildfires has moved across Utah. That'll stay here until tomorrow. Today, sunny above that smoke with clouds building up tomorrow, and there's a chance for more thunderstorms on Friday. Today's high 87 and up to 94 on Thursday. Right now, 83 degrees and sunny above that smoke at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. Your all-day companion for news.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
The condemnation and prosecution of political opponents has been something the United States has condemned in other countries. China, Russia, Venezuela, Myanmar, and a host of other countries come to mind when we think about those who either get rid of or condemn or prosecute their opponents. Beyond the headline, for me, the question is, are we as Americans in danger of becoming what we condemn? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, we've covered it in a host of different countries around the world. China, Russia, Venezuela, North Korea, where if you have a political opponent, they're either imprisoned, poisoned, or downed in a plane. We condemn that. And yet, are we in danger of becoming the very thing that we condemn? I'll never forget in 2016 at the GOP National Convention in Cleveland, I'll never forget a very dark moment in a jam-packed stadium there in Cleveland where the chants as it related to then candidate Hillary Clinton were lock her up. And I remember thinking then, whoa, wait a minute. Is this what we've become? Are we becoming Venezuela? And then, again, regardless of how you feel about former President Trump, you can look at some of the things that have taken place in some of these prosecutions, and you can just ask, is this the right thing? We have to let all of those play out. But the very look makes it look like, well, maybe there's some targeting in there. Maybe there's some preferential treatment to others that weren't extended to the former president. But then you turn around and the former president, talking to Glenn Beck the other day, was asked the question straight up. Do you wish you would have locked her up then? And what will you do next? If you were president again, what would you do with your opponents? And the answer was pretty chilling. The answer is, this is quoting the former president, the answer is you have no choice because they're doing it to us, the former president said. And that is where I think we all begin to unravel. And again, I don't care if you're left, right, center, anywhere in between. The moment the sides, the political parties, are making decisions based on targeting or going after political opponents, we have a problem. Now, we know we had a problem during the Obama administration when IRS agents were very specifically targeting conservative people in tax cases. And we've seen it, again, left and right, equal opportunity offense going on. But the bigger question is this what we want to become as a country? Do we want to be so locked in the political zero-sum game of today's polarized politics that we're willing to go to the extent that we need to lock up our opponents? That we need to target those that we disagree with? If you want to look at where that leads, you don't have to look very far. Look at Venezuela, look at North Korea, look at China, look at Russia. That's what it looks like, folks. And you can say, oh, no, that would never, ever, ever happen in America. Well, that's a very slippery slope because the never, ever, ever becomes reality very rapidly when we start to justify and we start to use the yeah, but language. Yeah, but Hillary Clinton. Yeah, but Donald Trump. Yeah, but Hunter Biden. And on and on and on it goes. And so soon we start playing this targeting game of, oh, yeah, of course it's okay. We can target them because they're different or because they're wrong or because they're evil. That happens super fast. And that leads us to a crisis that none of us want to go down. And sadly, because that's where we've been headed with the way we talk about each other and how those on both sides of the political aisle talk about each other, we suddenly have this really interesting space where the supporters of political parties are pretty small, actually. It's a crisis of confidence. You can go all the way back to Jimmy Carter. This is a different kind of crisis of confidence. Because it's all about the end game and who's in power, who has control. Now, we know if you dig underneath the numbers that the vast majority of Americans do not want to see a repeat of Joe Biden and Donald Trump in 2024. In fact, it's interesting if you just dig in a little further into those numbers. 52% of Americans have an unfavorable view of Joe Biden, including 37% that have a very unfavorable view of the president. The current frontrunner in the GOP nomination, the former president, Donald Trump, 62% have an unfavorable view, including 51% who hold a very negative view. So here's an interesting thing. So if you look at those who have very favorable views, it's pretty much a toss-up. Only 19% of Americans have a very favorable view of Donald Trump. So for all of those who think that there's this big base of support for the former president, it's just not there. It's 19%. And guess what? It's 18% for Joe Biden that have a very favorable view of those two individuals. And that's where we are. That there's no trust, there's no confidence, but yet everybody is playing this zero-sum game. And so is it a moment where we can do it different? Because neither of these candidates would even pass the hold your nose smell test. Many people in 2016 and in 2020 kind of held their nose and voted for a Democrat or a Republican just because they were afraid of the evil, awful other side. But I don't think either current President Joe Biden or former President Donald Trump could get the I'll hold my nose and vote for them vote in 2024. And so the question then becomes, about we the people. And are we afraid of losing power? Are we so entrenched that we think it's okay to target your opponents? Are we so certain because of whatever we clicked on today or whatever headline we read or whatever social media feed filled us full of stuff that is just our own little bubble that we think it's okay? So for all the condemnation we have of countries like North Korea and China and Russia for targeting political opponents or locking them up or poisoning them or sending them off to prison, I think it's worth asking the question, are we becoming the thing that we condemn? It's time to think again about how we approach our politics, our policies, and how we come together as a country.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Next Tuesday,
there's still time for people to get their ballots turned in.
Republicans make their choice.
It's hard to compare this election to ones of the past.
Reporter Lindsay Aerts will cover every twist and turn in our countdown to the 2nd District primary. It's the race to replace Congressman Chris Stewart. All this week on KSL News Radio.
Home is your sanctuary, or is it? If you're tired of yard work, too much space to clean over multiple levels, listen up. Start enjoying home a little more with Nielsen Homes' newest single-level townhomes. Move-in ready without the thought of tedious yard work and close to all the things you love and enjoy. Nielsen Homes offers spacious single-level open floor plans without stairs or yard work and a lower 5.5% interest rate. Nielsen Homes has been building homes across the Wasatch Front for over 45 years. They understand all stages of life and build homes to accommodate the things you need. Pair it with things you love. See their newest single-level living community in Davis and Weber County, close to golf, pickleball, and more. It's low-maintenance luxury single-level living. No stairs, no more lawnmowers, no yard work, no waiting, and no high interest rates. Visit Nielsen Homes Communities at nielsenhomes.com. Call 385-389-1160. Online at nilsonhomes.com.
Emergency traffic on KSL News Radio, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. We have a closure of westbound I-80 due to a rolled semi prior to 2300 East. All lanes of traffic are blocked, and traffic coming out of Parley's Canyon is being diverted to either Foothill or I-215's eastbound. At least that's what they're trying to do, but you will not be able to hit the valley floor of westbound I-80 from Parley's Canyon. Now, the estimated clearance time of this accident is not until about 4:30 p.m., so anticipate this to impact your afternoon drive. If you're coming from Summit County into the valley, try to plan an alternate route if possible, including your afternoon drive home. Ricky Meeson, the KSL Traffic Center.
Have you Googled yourself lately? Are there negative posts from an ex-employee or from a former client? Maybe an outdated news article or sensitive personal information about your family? Search engines don't always get it right. For right or wrong, it's your reputation on the line. That's where Reputation Defender by Norton comes in. One of the most trusted names in online reputation repair, Reputation Defender has been fixing people's search results for over 15 years. Their cutting-edge approaches help you to wipe away unwanted information in your search results. They also promote the good stuff so that it rises to the top, helping you put your best foot forward. Your good name is too valuable to leave to the whims of a Google algorithm. Take control with Reputation Defender. You can start by getting your free reputation report card at reputationdefender.com or call 800-401-6681 to speak to an expert. That's 800-401-6681.
What is the biggest threat to your retirement savings today? Believe it or not, it's taxes. That's right. You could be paying a lot more taxes in retirement than you realize. Learn more in a free report. 3 retirement tax traps that could wipe out your savings. It's from Boss Retirement Solutions, a 5-time winner of Utah's Best of State Award. This free report reveals how you could avoid 3 retirement tax traps that could needlessly cost you tens of thousands, and in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars. To get this free report, call 801-896-9622. Don't needlessly overpay your taxes in retirement. Get this free report now by calling 801-896-9622. That's 801-896-9622.
Advisory services offered through Boss Retirement Advisors, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. Insurance products and services offered through Boss Retirement Solutions.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, 3 girls, sisters who'd been reported missing in Orem last night, have now been found safe. Second, one of Salt Lake County's public libraries is set up to help people access telehealth sessions with their doctors. And third, add tornadoes to the potential danger from Hurricane Idalia as the storm moves north through the Carolinas. Right now, 83 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
America's been contending with the opioid crisis for years now, and fentanyl, of course, has made the crisis even deadlier just in the past few years alone. But now fentanyl has been laced into so many other pills that it's increasing the number of teens who are overdosing on the drug without even knowing it. And this is one of those interesting things where, is there a federalism approach to this? The states, are the states the ones who are going to have to lead out? Does the federal government, the national government, seems to be slow in being able to actually do anything? A great piece in Politico talking about how fentanyl is killing kids and how states, again, taking this idea of federalism, what can we do at the state level to get to some of those answers? Carmen Pons, a global health reporter for Politico. And again, this is an important piece for everybody to check out today. And Carmen joins us on the line. Carmen, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So let's start with just kind of the baseline here in terms of where we are dealing with fentanyl. We hear a lot about it coming across the border. We hear about ingredients coming from China. We hear about a lot of U.S. citizens are the ones bringing it across the border. But this is often finding its way into the hands of young people in the country. Just kind of give us an update first, and then we'll get into some of those solutions.
Indeed. So obviously we've seen a very high number of overdose deaths in the United States over the last year. The CDC data talks about, an estimated 110,000 overdose deaths. Most of them seem to be caused by fentanyl, so about 70%. And among those, there's been a high increase in the number of overdoses caused by fentanyl that led to teens' deaths. So I heard about so many stories all across the country of teens who were found dead in their rooms because they took a pill they thought there was something else, Percocet, Adderall, something else that they were hoping to, get to relax, and then they never woke up. And it's, this has been under the radar. Obviously, the numbers are not as high as for adults, but it is an increasing problem, and it is happening all across the country.
Yeah, you pointed out in your piece something that I really love. You looked at 2 very different political states, California and Texas, but both of them are taking kind of a state-based approach to dealing with fentanyl. Describe those for us.
Indeed. So both states are have either, in the case of Texas, passed a bill that became law, and in California, there's a similar bill making its way through the state legislature, trying to educate kids and their parents about the dangers of fentanyl, about the fact that, there are pills that most likely are laced with this very strong opioid that could lead very fast in very small amounts to death. So in Texas, the Governor Greg Abbott signed the law in June, and this law actually came about as a result of the advocacy from a mom, Stephanie Turner, who lost her son 2 years ago to a fentanyl overdose, and she created an NGO, started advocating for more awareness raising. And, I talked to her, and she was telling me, this has to be on all billboards. We really don't understand how insidious this is. And then in California, there's a law now being heard, and it's named after a girl, 15-year-old girl, who lost her life to a fentanyl overdose, and she was found dead in her high school. And it's really trying to do the same thing, trying to make sure that schools have in place a plan to deal with these overdoses and to be able to provide naloxone, the overdose reversal drug, to help save this kid's life.
Wow, so important. And one of the things that you included in your piece that, again, it was one of those under the radar things that I just love in this kind of reporting. And that is, it wasn't just about the laws and just the high level, but you actually spent some time talking about social media and the impact that it is having and how it is often leading or becoming part of the initiation into this kind of addiction, overdose, and death.
Indeed, social media is a big part of the problem. The administrator of the Drug Enforcement Administration, Ed Milgram, has talked often about it. And in one congressional hearing, she called social media the superhighway of drugs because, obviously teens spend a lot of time online on social media, and they could easily find drugs there. The moms of some of the kids who unfortunately lost their lives talked about how they could see those posts even after their children died. They could still see this post of drug dealer basically advertising their merchandise, and it's very easy for kids to order a pill, get it home, get it in their bedrooms without their parents knowing, and then dying in their sleep basically. And it's really hard to control that. There's been talks between the administration and between the Drug Enforcement Administration specifically with social media companies to try to really get that under control. But so far, it doesn't seem like it's happening yet.
Yeah, it really is. The internet really is a superhighway. I think that social media and just the impacts of social media in terms of self-esteem and self-worth, all of those things I think are just compounding implications there that we've got to get a different kind of conversation. Real quickly, I want to jump to kind of the national view of that. You also mentioned some of the work being done by Senator Tim Kaine, Democrat from Virginia, talking about things that need to be done on the national level and his call that fentanyl should be looked at as a national security threat. Tell us about that.
Indeed. So there are many bills, many amendments in Congress, in D.C., to try to deal with this issue, both when it comes to youth overdose death, but also just the broader problem of opiate overdoses. And actually, I followed Senator Kaine when he went and visited a treatment facility earlier this summer and spoke to people who were recovering from substance use disorder. And, he did speak a lot about the need to treat people who have the issue, to respond to their needs and to make sure that they are supported in all aspects of their life so they can overcome their addiction and, sustain a long-term recovery. One of the things he is indeed doing is to name this issue, because obviously it's an international issue, a national security issue, and he did manage to introduced as an amendment in the National Defense Authorization Bill that is making its way to Congress, because he wants the Department of Defense to actually use some of its capabilities to interdict the substance from entering into the country, much more than it is happening now.
So important. And finally, just about a minute to go. Give us one thing in all of your research. Your piece is so extensive in terms of everything from the state to the national level to what's happening online with our kids. In all of your reporting, what's something that has surprised you as you've really dug into the fentanyl crisis in the country?
I think it just feels like the action that is being taken is somehow driven by, the bottom up is coming from parents who are channeling their grief into advocacy and into trying to make sure that other parents don't go through the same nightmare that they've been going through. So they're going to their state lawmakers, they're coming to Washington, D.C. and lobbying federal lawmakers to do something about it, to make sure that, fentanyl doesn't end up in the hands of kids who, as you said, many times they don't even know they're taking it. They think they're taking something else. And it's just, it has become so much more dangerous because this is such a potent drug that can kill you in such a short time and in a small amount.
Yeah, so important. Carmen Pon, global health reporter for Politico, an important piece for us to read, a crucial conversation that we need to have. And just as a reminder, tomorrow is Overdose Prevention Day. There'll be some activities going on up at the Utah State Capitol, other things around the country. This is a uncomfortable conversation we got to get comfortable with at the state level, at the community level, at the national level. Carmen, thanks for joining us today and giving us some great insight on that.
Great talking to you. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. We're going to step aside for a break, but don't go anywhere. We're going to spend the last 30 minutes of the show talking about political polarization and the solution. The solution is not in nicer politics. It might be found in more connected communities. We'll talk about that coming up next. Stick around.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bonas. KSL's top local story this hour. Utah County is getting another new city that's going to be over 100 acres larger than the development at Point of the Mountain. KSL News Radio's Alessandra Harris reports.
Utah City will be built just east of Utah Lake, including over 700 acres of land. The city is focused on walkability and community. The city will be a location for a second headquarters for the Huntsman Cancer Institute and have direct waterfront access to Utah Lake.
The Utah City development is within the city of Vineyard. It's set to be completed in 15 years. 3 sisters who were reported missing in Orem last night have been found safe now. Orem police say the 3, 14-year-old Kennedy, 12-year-old Cashley, and 10-year-old Kaylee, were last seen near 250 East and 1600 South in Orem Tuesday evening. An officer had believed the 3 were traveling together. Our top national story this hour from ABC News.
Moved over land and is now shifted to Category 1. But it is still very dangerous with winds up to 75 miles an hour.
President Biden talking about Hurricane Idalia, which smashed into the Gulf Coast of Florida this morning and is still dropping heavy rain along the Atlantic coast. It's bad timing for Charleston, South Carolina. High tide will happen as Hurricane Idalia makes its arrival tonight. ABC's Alex Perche reports from one of Charleston's waterways.
Charleston has dealt with hurricanes before, but this surge could be pretty impactful. It is low-lying marina behind me along the Ashley River. A lot of boats there. That wall's not very tall, so, if there's a significant surge, we expect it to lap over. They are urging people to stay indoors, to hunker down, and not to put these first responders at risk.
ABC's Alex Perche. Your money at this moment, at the close of trading today, the Dow Jones average was up 37 points, the NASDAQ up 75, the S&P 500 rose 17 points today. And our KSL weather, we've got smoke today, we're going to get clouds tomorrow. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
Start your days with knowledgeable, friendly voices telling you about the latest news and weather out there.
Hi, this is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
In the business of waking you up each morning from 5 to 9.
On KSL News Radio.
Where does a journey to wellness begin? Do you start looking for diet ideas? Or searching for exercise plans? Actually, you don't have to look far. Just look to the first 2 letters of the word wellness. We means you don't have to figure it out yourself. It means your hopes and challenges are a perfect match for our knowledge and resources. It means anything you want to achieve, together, we can achieve better. Because wellness begins with we. Intermountain Health. The power of we.
Attention taxpayers. If you or your business owe the IRS back taxes, the IRS has greenlighted billions of dollars in tax relief to those facing financial hardship and is now accessible through Tax Help USA. If you have a delinquent tax problem and possibly facing wage garnishment, liens, levies, audits, or already in a payment plan, you may now qualify for significant relief. For this free information, call 800-948-9401. 800-948-9401. That's 800-948-9401.
Hey, BYU football fans, come see KSL's own Midge Harper this Friday, September 1st at Macy's Grocery Store in Pleasant Grove, 931 West State Street from 4 to 7 p.m. for fun, prizes, and chances to win tickets to the BYU Sam Houston football game or a $50 Macy's gift card. You'll have multiple chances to win every hour. And during the broadcast, be sure to visit the Macy's Meat Department and pick up some of their easy meals. They're all cut, seasoned, and prepared just for you. Put them on the grill or in the oven and you have dinner in a snap. These meals are perfect for dinner or any tailgate party. So celebrate the football season and join KSL's own Midge Harper this Friday, September 1st at Macy's Tailgate in Pleasant Grove from 4 to 7 p.m. Food, activities for the family, and you can win tickets to the BYU Sam Houston football game or a $50 Macy's gift card. Macy's. Happy shopping!
Join Mike Stevens of Capital Wealth Advisors for Retire Right Radio, Saturdays at 5 a.m. and 9 p.m. That's Retire Right Radio with Mike Stevens, Saturdays at 5 a.m. and 9 p.m.
We're still looking at emergency traffic, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meeks.
We have a closure of westbound to I-80 prior to 2300 East due to a rolled semi. All traffic is being diverted out of Parley's Canyon on westbound I-80, but we still have solid delays from just before the quarry all the way to the valley floor. Again, if you can avoid or delay your travel time coming from Summit County into the valley in Salt Lake County, do so or find an alternate route. Right now it is stop and go delays, and you will be diverted off westbound I-80 to get to Foothill or I-215's East Belt. Your one-tank trip starts in Cedar City, Parowan, and Bryan Head. Beautiful scenery, live theater, mountain biking, chairlift rides, ATVing, art, and food await you in Cedar City. That's visitcedarcity.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, we're seeing smoke from wildfires with sunshine as well. And that'll stay here through tomorrow. Sunny today, again with clouds building up tomorrow, and a chance for more thunderstorms on Friday. Today's high 87, up to 94 on Thursday. And right now, 84 degrees with sunshine above the smoke at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. Your all-day companion for news.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
We are very pleased to have back on the program Eboo Patel. Of course, he's the founder and president of Interfaith America. He's the author of the book We Need to Build, Field Notes for Diverse Democracy. He's the host of the new podcast, Interfaith America. He's also, this is really important, and this is very exciting for the University of Utah and for the state of Utah, for that matter. He is going to be an Impact Scholar for the 2023-24 and the 24-25 academic years. And Eboo, welcome back to the show.
Boyd, it's great to be with you. Thank you for having me.
You are leading some extraordinary conversations across the country and bringing some of those things here to the state of Utah as well. Let's start with what you're doing with the University of Utah, the Kim C. Gardner Policy Institute, of course. Talk to us a little bit about Impact Scholar and what you hope to accomplish with that.
Well, I'm thrilled to be an Impact Scholar for this academic year and next, and we'll see what happens after that. I'm following in the footsteps of some terrific people, Tim Shriver and Arthur Brooks. And you know, University of Utah is a great institution, and Utah is a great state. And part of what colleges do is they are a laboratory for important initiatives across the state, and they are a launching pad for leaders. And one of the initiatives that the state of Utah is taking on, and your governor is leading this across the country, is the Disagree Better initiative. Basically bringing people who think and believe differently together in common action. If we're going to have a cohesive nation, we're really going to have to lean into that ethic. I think that that's the American genius right there, is taking people who believe differently and even think differently and having them act together. And I'm going to be part of that at the University of Utah, talking with scholars and administrators and students there about how best to do that, and then hopefully be a part of that ethic as it spreads across the state.
I love that. Such an important series of conversations. We look forward to having you in the state for some of those conversations as the two academic years roll forward. I want to dive into some of the things that we've been talking about. We've been focused a lot today, of course, on Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech, and not just the I Have a Dream section. There were some other sections that were equally important during that have a lot of messages, I think, for our day, not just for 60 years ago. And it ties directly into something you wrote not too long ago, talking about polarization and what I think is a really fascinating way to approach it. So often we jump into focusing on controlling the behavior. You're really saying if we did something else together and focus on some of those higher principles of bringing people together, the byproduct of that might be ending the polarization.
The great genius of American society is our civil society, our civic culture. And what that does is it brings people of diverse identities and divergent ideologies together in activities with a common aim that guide cooperative relationships. Think Little League, think a swim team, think a debate team, think a 4-H club, think about a YMCA. You've got people of a range of identities and a range of ideologies coming together because they think baseball is important. or they think that 4-H activities are important, or they think that chess is important. And because they have that common aim that they are engaged in through a concrete activity, they are building cooperative relationships. And you simply cannot have a diverse democracy unless you have a robust sector that allows people to engage in those kinds of activities. And that's what we have in America, and it's time to strengthen that sector, to recognize its genius, and really to lift that ethic up to the rest of our lives.
Yeah, so important, and I love the way you have framed this. And often when we talk about this civic muscle, the civil society, the social capital that comes out of everything from Little League to what's happening at the PTA, it seems to me that we've lost some of that. Even in places like school board meetings have now become much more a political debate, or a divide between what's woke and what's not. How do we get back to just simply exercising that civic muscle?
So I think it's to recognize what the real treasure there is. Alexis de Tocqueville, who wrote Democracy in America in the 1830s, he talked about the art of association being the mother science of American democracy. That he said it was the fundamental institution. And I think it's important to think to ourselves, when we're in a school board meeting or a town hall meeting or high school theater or Little League baseball, we are engaged in an essential way in American democracy, and it is all about engaging with people of different identities and divergent ideologies on a concrete project with common aims that guide cooperative relationship. That's what we are engaged. You should expect diverse identities and divergent ideologies. Now, you shouldn't expect Nazis, right? There are parameters, there are lines, but you should expect to be in a room with people with whom you disagree, engage in a concrete activity, and think to yourself, this is the sacredness of American democracy that I'm currently a part of.
And it's so important for us to recognize, all the way back to Tocqueville, that this is not a new thing to the country. You've pointed out several times, whether it's a Bill Clinton and the Corporation for National and Community Service, or 1,000 Points of Lights from George H.W. Bush, these are things that are kind of natural to us. We've just kind of pushed them to the side, it seems.
I think what's happening is Americans still do these things, right? Like you can't think of a community in America where something along those lines isn't happening, right? So the treasure is still there. We just haven't elevated it to the center of our national narrative. So we talk about the food fight, even though in reality we're busy serving each other food. And I think we need to return to talking about Little League baseball and chess clubs and 4-H clubs as part of the center of American democracy, and realizing that, if Tocqueville is right, and I think he is, that our civil society is inextricably linked to the health of our democracy, then the health of our civic institutions is inextricably linked to the health of our civil society. It's just that simple. Yeah. And so operating a sports league, operating a debate club, that's holy work. That's sacred work, and we should understand it as such.
Totally agree. And one of the headwinds, and you pointed out this in your piece at Deseret.com not too long ago, that there are some headwinds out there, that volunteerism is down, polarization is up, obviously. So as you look at some of those headwinds, are there cracks in the headwinds that give us some hope to say, okay, all we got to do is just nudge this way a little bit, and maybe we'll turn that headwind into a tailwind? There's always hope.
There's always hope. I think what we have to do is, look, we're always looking at a point of light. To use an old George H.W. Bush metaphor, there's always a point of light. We need to tell the story of it. We need to see the other lights surrounding it. We need to see them as kind of a collective light, right? We need to highlight the things of beauty that are happening around us all the time. There's a great line in a U2 song. It goes, I woke up at the moment that the miracle occurred. It's a song called The Song for Joey Ramone. And you realize something when you hear that lyric, that the miracle is always occurring. The only question is, are you awake? I love that. That's so powerful. And so share with us, just as you've had these conversations across the country, give us some examples of those, because we love to tell the stories on this show of those who are living the principles, who are showing what it means to be engaged, to be out there in the Little League. What are some of the things that you've noticed, or some of the conversations you've been having that are part of that point of light that ultimately could make the difference for us? Yeah, so, we are part of a coalition called the Team Up Coalition, with the YMCA, with Habitat for Humanity, and Catholic Charities. These are some of the biggest civic networks in the country, and we are sponsoring at sites across the country people who are coming together in Habitat for Humanity build, in YMCA summer camps and Catholic Charities soup kitchens. We're widening the welcome for a wider diversity of volunteers to participate in that kind of work, and we are running trainings so that those volunteers are able to deal with an even wider divergence and diversity of participants in those programs. And so to see a national initiative like Team Up roll out, I just think is extremely exciting.
I love that. That's powerful stuff when you see groups like that, Habitat for Humanity, Catholic Charities, YMCA. Those are some groups that people can recognize and see. Give us some sense in terms of some of the lesser known, some of the under the radar things that you're either seeing or sensing as you crisscross the country.
So there's a great program that we're involved with between Spring Arbor College and Oberlin College called Bridging the Gap, which is now an initiative of my organization, Interfaith America. And it's bringing students from very, very different backgrounds together. People who would have hated the idea of the other person, bringing them together in a dialogue, a project that says we need to understand one another. It's called Bridging the Gap. Two of the great campuses that are involved are Spring Arbor and Oberlin, but there's actually dozens of campuses that are now getting involved in this kind of stuff. And so I think the beauty of this is that the work of pluralism 3 or 4 years ago was something that was unpopular in a lot of quarters because the notion of like digging into your tribe, it kind of felt far more romantic. But you actually don't want a nation that's coming apart at the seams. You don't want a community whose high school theater shuts down. You don't want a town where the Little League coaches can't get along because they voted differently. You actually do want to be in a place where people are cooperating on concrete activities that serve the common good. Everything from this Bridging the Gap program to the Team Up initiative, it's all lifting this up. And incidentally, I think the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is a real leader in this. President Nelson highlighting you have a chance to be somebody who sows discord or you have a chance to be a peacemaker. Mm-hmm. You always have a choice. Choose to be a peacemaker. I think that's powerful. I think that leadership is really needed right now. So important. And finally, Ibu, before I let you go on what I know is a very busy day for you, give us something that in all of this work, you clearly have a vision of what's possible and really what's real in terms of where we've been and who we are as a country. As you've been taking this journey with your organization, with these other organizations and all the conversations you're involved in, give us something that has surprised you in this. Where's like one of those wow moments? It surprises me when somebody says something negative about somebody in public and then turns around and engages respectfully with that person in person. And I think it actually shouldn't surprise me anymore because it happens so often, but it just shows we have to increase person-to-person contact because you have to create a space where it is easier for people to cooperate. You have to create a space where it is easier for people to cooperate. And right now, there are too many places in the virtual world in that are set up for us to be in conflict. So let's dedicate ourselves to creating spaces where it is easier for people to cooperate.
Fantastic insight as always, Ibu Patel. Always appreciate your perspective. Again, Ibu's the founder and president of Interfaith America. He's the author of We Need to Build, Field Notes for Diverse Democracies, an impact scholar for the University of Utah. That's going to be exciting during the course of the next 2 academic years, and continues to write and gather and connect people across the country on this crucial conversation that really is both the soul of the nation and I think the hope for the future of the nation. Ibu, thanks so much for joining us today.
Well said, Boyd. Thank you.
We're going to stay with the conversation, and we're going to get to the practical tacticals of it all, because is it just nicer politics? Is that all we need, or do we need more connected communities? We're going to break that down as we round out the show here on Inside Sources on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Held over due to popular demand. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to save 40 to 80% on a hot tub and swim spa. 4 days only, Friday through Monday. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Be advised, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to save 40 to 80% on a hot tub and swim spa. 4 days only, Friday through Monday. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates, this weekend only. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Friday noon to 8, Saturday 10 to 8, Sunday 10 to 6, Monday 10 to 6. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
Everybody knows that exterior remodeling salespeople are all about the high-pressure sell. Am I right? Windows, siding, gutters, those suckers are going to twist your arm and get you to buy, or they won't leave your house at night. Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors, and I want you to know we don't have high-pressure cells. In fact, we don't even have salespeople. Nope, we have estimators. That's a huge difference. Estimators are trained to look at the entire scope of the project, to see and know if there are any problems, like rotten wood, wood-borne insects, or construction issues specific to your house or your neighbors. Salespeople are more concerned about playing those silly price games. Buy one, get one free, sign today and get 40% off, as if they didn't just jack the price up to give you a fake discount. RGS Exteriors estimators are going to give you a great quote. No games, no tricks, no nonsense. Call RGS Exteriors to quote your exterior project. Our number is 801-280-3110 or visit us at rgsutah.com. That's rgsutah.com.
What's the biggest threat to your retirement savings today? Believe it or not, it's taxes. That's right, you could be paying a lot more taxes in retirement than you realize. Learn more in a free report, 3 retirement tax traps that could wipe out your savings. It's from Boss Retirement Solutions, a 5-time winner of Utah's Best of State Award. This free report reveals how you could avoid 3 retirement tax traps that could needlessly cost you tens of thousands, and in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars. To get this free report, call 801-896-9622. Don't needlessly overpay your taxes in retirement. Get this free report now by calling 801-896-9622. That's 801-896-9622.
Advisory services offered through Boss Retirement Advisors, an SEC registered investment advisory firm. Insurance products and services offered through Boss Retirement Solutions.
3 little words no parent wants to hear.
My tummy hurts.
And it always seems to happen at the worst times. Like in the middle of the morning rush, when you still have homework to check and lunches to pack, and of course, you're already late for work. Luckily, there's Pepto Kids. New Pepto Kids gummies helps relieve occasional stomach upsets, turning those 3 words into these 3 words.
I feel better.
Bad time for stomach upsets? Good time for new Pepto Kids gummies. Fast support for little tummies.
These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Whether you own a local business or a global one, you're always looking for ways to position your operation to create opportunities and move on them faster. With Bank of America, you get access to experts, award-winning insights, and business solutions so powerful, you'll make every move matter, locally and globally. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Copyright 2023 Bank of America, N.A.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, work has begun on a 700-acre development and vineyard that's being called Utah City. Second, 3 young sisters who were reported missing in Orem last night have been found safe. Third, the worst possible time for Hurricane Idalia to arrive in South Carolina would be at high tide in Charleston, and that's when it's expected. 84 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Emergency traffic on KSL News Radio, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Parley's Canyon, the lower half, all jammed up. It's due to a freeway closure westbound to I-80 prior to 2300 East with a rolled semi. All lanes of traffic are blocked, and you will be diverted out of Parley's Canyon to Foothill or I-215's East Belt. But the delays are heavy and stop and go. Right now, you need to plan ahead for the drive home, or if you're coming from Wyoming into Summit County and trying to get to Salt Lake City, try to take an alternate if possible or delay your travel time. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. I am Boyd Matheson. As we round out the program, if you're just joining us, we spent the last half hour really talking through this whole idea of what is it that we actually need in the nation. And there's been a lot of talk around nicer politics, and while I am all for that, nicer politics is needed, and nicer politics is not enough. What we actually need is more connected communities. We were just talking with Eboo Patel, who's going to be an impact scholar here at the University of Utah. And as we were talking about it, as we look at this polarization issue in the country, solving the polarization problem is not going to happen through politics, good, bad, or indifferent. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to be the solution. The solution to polarization is connected community. It's going back to our founding as a country and the thing that has made us extraordinary as a nation, and that is how we come together. It's social capital. It's civil society. It used to be the old barn raising. If your neighbor's barn burned to the ground, the neighborhood came out and built a new barn, a barn raising. Why? Because that's what you do. You help a neighbor in need. No government had to mandate it. No one had to be threatened with a tax if they didn't do it. They just did it. It's that connective tissue. That's the way we solve the polarization problem. I guarantee you, if you show up over the weekend and you go to a soup kitchen, you go coach a Little League game, you go volunteer at the school, nobody's going to say, well, tell me who you voted for in the last election. Nobody's asking that. They're saying, how can you help this 8-year-old? How can you help this person who has been dealing with being unsheltered or unhoused? How can you help this person who's dealing with addiction? How can you help that neighbor who's struggling with depression or loneliness? That's the answer, folks. It's really simple. It's who we are as a nation. And sadly, what's happened is because our politics have been so polarized, we've created an artificial version of connection. It's called social media. Now, social media has its place, but it is not connective tissue. It might be connective information, but it's not connective tissue. And it's not going to sustain you when you really need it. And sadly, what it's produced is a lot of moments. We are really, really good as a country in coming together for a moment. And whether it's coming together like we are today for the people in Florida who are dealing with the disaster of a hurricane, or what's been happening over the last few weeks with the fire in Maui. You know, all of you who are listening and those who listen to KSL TV and KSL Radio and other Bonneville organizations raised $500,000 to help those that are in need dealing with the fire. Not because you were threatened, not because you had to, but because that's what you do. It's what we do. And so we've gotten really good at coming together in these moments of natural disaster, moments of tragedy. Think back to 9/11. The country came together for a moment. Mass shooting in Nevada, we come together in a moment. Mass shooting in Texas, we come together in a moment. Something happens on the other side of the world, we come together in a moment. But a moment is not enough to get rid of the polarization of the politics. We have to create a sustainable movement. It's a movement that we need. And the movement is connecting as community. I am convinced that connecting as a community, whether it's to raise money for something, to do a project, clean up the neighborhood, help out a neighbor in need, whatever it may be, even just gathering is powerful. Because when you do that, the politics goes away. Because you're not asking about the politics. You're asking about people. And we are a nation of people. We are not a nation of Democrats or Republicans or independents. We're not a nation of black and red and white and blue and